The peculiarity of South Africa is that it almost made it easy for us to understand. That the architects of apartheid had an idea that said, we actually want this outcome. We want an outcome where there is a divergence between the haves and the not-haves. Just that those who have will be of a certain complexion and those who don't have a different complexion. When they analyzed what the factors of production are, or what creates wealth, there are really two pillars of wealth. One is land, and the other is education. Call it physical capital and human capital. And in the apartheid system, for all of the laws that were passed, the two that really took away economic power from black people was one to say, you cannot own land. Once you can't own land, you can't own property, you can't own a business, it's very difficult to create wealth. Then there's Bantu education that says, whoa, before you are educated and have a high income that you might save, we will educate you to a certain level and no further.
In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways. The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or position of this channel, its hosts, or affiliates. This podcast is a platform for open discussions and exploration of various perspectives, including controversial and unconventional ideas. We encourage viewers to think critically, do their own research, and form their own opinions. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as fact, advice, or an endorsement of any specific viewpoint. Viewers' discretion is advised. MOYA Ulight, MOYA Upright. Welcome to another episode of MOYA Political Series, where we give you guys the education that you're not going to get at the Mlungu schools. Thank you so much for everybody liking, sharing, and subscribing. The community is growing. We're getting bigger and bigger. Thank you to everybody who's donating. Thank you especially to the members who pitch in every month. We really see you. And thank you for watching all the adverts to the end, guys. You are we can see your efforts. Thank you so much. So it's a Wednesday. Wednesdays we speak politics, economics, the things that affect our bag. And we've got one of our favorite economists in the country, ANDILE MAZWAI. It's always such a privilege to hang out with you because, first of all, people just really love you. So I know this is going to be a very wholesome engagement. And then just to get into your heart, I think that a lot of the time when we speak economics, and I think we're getting closer now to where the type of people want to be, it's so removed from just the normal person on the ground. And what we try to do here is to make it understandable to, so why is it important? Where are they? When we think about the economy of South Africa, for instance, what are we talking about?
Perhaps, hi.
Hi.
Perhaps when we look at economy, or when we look at economy, we often look at the national economy. And it's big, and there are big moving parts, and there are big words, and there are big numbers. Economy is really your bag, your purse, your wallet, your pocket. The country's economy is all of our economies put together. So a nice way to look at it is to say, if you look at your own pocket, there's money coming in, there's money going out. And you know which way you'd like to have it.
Yes.
More this way than that way. Then what do you do in your own personal life to try and get that scale balanced such that you are growing your wealth? That's the economy. How to manage money in a way that tomorrow will be better off than it is today.
We make so little though, and please feel free. Yeah. I'm a listener on this platform, so you're gonna just go and be a philosopher, and you can, because it means different things. To someone, let's say Elokshin, who earns exactly 5,000 Rand every month, there is no savings, or it's just a matter of ensuring that 5,000, and then compared to someone who's earning like a CEO at Standard Bank.
500,000.
Right?
In a month. I'll bring it home. We have, and shame, he'll forgive me for using him as my subject today. We have a teenager at home, and he was just old enough to get a bank account. So we opened up a bank account, and I took it upon myself to teach him how a bank account works. And I said to him, when you get your money, you take 1/3 and you put it in savings. To which he asked, what are we going to do with it? I said, no. You're not asking the question, what are we going to do with it? Already your mindset with what are we going to do with it is saying, when are we going to eat it? So he gets pocket money of 180 Rand.
Okay.
So the economics are easy. 1/3 of it, 60 Rand, must go into savings for the sake of saving. I said, look, it's your pocket money. When you go out with your friends, when you go out to the mall, you're going to go and enjoy yourselves. Whether it's for 180 Rand or 120 Rand, I promise you it's going to feel the same. It'll finish just as quickly. You'll have just the same amount of fun. But on this side, you are going to have 60 Rand left over. And after you received your pocket money once, twice, thrice, you will have in savings what is equal to your income. He was still struggling with it. I then brought him to a conversation that I had overheard him have, where he was speaking with his friends. They were clearly planning to do something. And his retort to them was, nah, I'm broke. To which I said to him, no, you will never utter those words again. As hard as it is to save, if you don't, the one thing you can be sure of is that you will end up being broke, you will end up in poverty. So whether you're earning 5,000, 15,000, or 500,000, the principle remains the same. If you take all your money and you consume it, then you will be broke. You may be a very rich broke person or a very poor broke person, but you will be broke that when an opportunity comes to you, you just don't have the ability to do anything because you haven't put something away.
But still, if I don't have money to put away, then I'm stuck in perpetual brokenness, then whether I like it or not.
Let's then play it out. When you tell yourself that you don't have enough, you will pay so much more. Real numbers. You're on your phone, your airtime finishes, and just as it finishes, it's a terrible inconvenience because it finishes when you're using your phone. Because now you really want to finish off that thing that you were doing. And then you get a message that pops up to say, would you like an airtime advance? Now, you didn't have the 10 Rand. You can have an airtime advance of 10 Rand. Sure, so you click yes, you accept. Now you're going to pay back 11 Rand 20. You've just said you don't have 10 Rand, but you've just committed yourself to paying 11 Rand 20 for the same thing. If you do this every week, a Rand 20 every week for the same 10 Rand airtime, over 52 weeks, you will have spent an extra 62 Rand on the very same airtime. So yes, it's true when you say, I don't have. And what do credit providers do to you? They say, don't worry, pay us back tomorrow. More than what you thought you didn't have. And that is what really impoverishes you. If you think that you can't afford to save, what you're then doing is you're taking somebody else's savings as a borrowing, And you're paying them back what you took plus something else. So if saving is expensive, debt is frightfully more expensive.
So then how do we navigate this considering the history of our country?
The history of our country is relevant. It's no mistake that we have the level of inequality that we have. It was engineered.
Yeah.
South Africa is a rich country with poor people. And both those statements coexist. The wealth in South Africa is phenomenal. The poverty in South Africa is devastating. And they don't converge. Those with wealth walk this road, and those in poverty walk along that road. I was going to say, if you ignore, don't ignore colonization and everything else, but there's the peculiarity of South Africa is that it almost made it easy for us to understand. That the architects of apartheid had an idea that said, we actually want this outcome. We want an outcome where there is a divergence between the haves and the not haves. Just that those who have will be of a certain complexion and those who don't have a different complexion. When they analyzed what the factors of production are, or what creates wealth, there are really two pillars of wealth. One is land, and the other is education. Call it physical capital and human capital. And in the apartheid system, for all of the laws that were passed, the two that really took away economic power from black people was one to say, you cannot own land. Once you can't own land, you can't own property, you can't own a business. It's very difficult to create wealth. Then there's Bantu education that says, whoa. Before you are educated and have a high income that you might save, we will educate you to a certain level and no further. So to your observation, what do we do about it? And again, I'm not talking at I'm talking at what do we do individually. Individually, we then say, to what level am I educated? Myself. Some of us may have been fortunate enough to have formal education and the certificates that go with them. Or you may not be fortunate. If you have a device and you have an access to some literature, read. Education doesn't need to be formal. Read. In my line of work, we employ people. And what I find frightening is how people, when they know themselves not to be knowledgeable about something, they'll say it. I don't know, but. No. Where's the but coming in? I don't know, but I have an opinion. No, you're not impressing anybody. Just go and do your homework. Go and find out the facts. How does this thing actually work? Once you know how it works, then please give me your opinion. But don't substitute opinion for education. So education doesn't have to be this fancy thing. Education says, what line of work am I in? Let me teach myself a little bit. Let me learn from somebody. Because every time you learn a little bit more, so you become more and more productive. So in all of our personal capacities, that's what we need to do. How do you escalate that to a national agenda? Well, of course, it's the education system. Now, we all have a lot to say about the education system, so whoa. I don't want to have that conversation because now we're pointing there. They should do this, they should have done that, why didn't they? Let's all point within ourselves. What have I done? What book am I reading? What's the last bit of research, a factual thing that I read? And until we can answer that within ourselves, then let's not be too quick to point out what other people's shortcomings are and what their failings are. I'll just pause there for a moment because education really is something that is within all of our powers to do something about.
What do you think of African people's relationship with money as compared to perhaps other races?
Your question is correct. I'm going to just remind everybody that when we talk about black people's attitude and other races, remember, I'm answering it as not the color of the skin, but the haves and the have-nots.
Yes.
It's
correct.
engineered
Yes.
to be.
Yes.
It's engineered.
Yes.
The economics of poverty are frightful. I'll use a big word. Panarchial. Apartheid is a panarchial system. Panarchial meaning it operates at many levels: economic, psychological, physical, each one reinforcing the other. So what are my behaviors and attitudes towards money when I'm poor? When I receive money, my instinct and my fear is that I don't know when my next money is going to come from. Therefore, I must consume it all and all now. When you ask me to save, I say I'm so frightful of the future. I'm so uncertain of the future that I don't really believe in tomorrow. I certainly don't know where I'm going to be next year. Therefore, let me take what I have and consume it all now. And tomorrow's problems will wait for me patiently. Oh, they'll be there. But I'm not going to take my resources from today and allocate them from tomorrow. And so now you speak about your attitude towards money. So it's not that you don't save because you have little. You also don't save because you don't have faith in the future. You don't have faith in the future because the future's never done anything for you. The future keeps disappointing you over and over again. It therefore makes sense to say, if I'm at a function and there's food, let me put as much of this food in my stomach now. And then we'll see about what happens thereafter. Whereas those who do have money, their attitude towards money is, how can I accumulate it? How can I have more? And so, again, ignore the absolute numbers. When you don't have and you receive 100 Rand, you're most likely to consume it all. When you do have, when you get your 100 Rand, you don't want to consume it. Such is the excitement of, let me consume as little of it as possible. Save as much as possible so that I can watch my money grow. So that you consume, let's say, 70. You keep 30, and that 30 becomes 35, it becomes 45, it becomes 55 over a period of time. And so you get these diverging paths. So yeah, the relationship with money, as we call it, your relationship with money becomes self-reinforcing. If you tend to eat all your money, you have none. If you tend to save your money, you have more, perversely.
So don't be shy to just speak, ne? Because this is your platform to just, wherever your mind wants to take you and to unpack. Because it is important that we have these conversations, especially since, like the national dialogue, for example. Ideally, we're trying to have a conversation between the rich and the poor to see where we're going to find each other halfway, right?
Yep.
So what have been your thoughts around?
It was difficult for me. The national dialogue is something which, outside of an instance that we created, is something which would otherwise happen in a parliament. But that's actually where a national dialogue happens. But I understand the theatre of bringing the national dialogue to people. I would suggest that nothing new came out because our problems are known to us. They have been known to us. Many of them are of our own making. So to repeat and to air again what our problems were, I think would have left a lot of frustration because people want something done. If you were to take the manifestos of political parties and remove the names and the colors of those parties, I think you'd be hard-pressed to distinguish one from another because they all understand our problems well. And they all have solutions to those problems that will work. Our difficulty as South Africans, for reasons that are hard to understand, is that we seem to have an inertia. There's just this lack of will to do the things that need to be done. We often just, at that point where the shovel must now hit the ground and we must dig. Ingati, we do many other things rather than putting the shovel in the ground and digging. Whose shovel is it? Where did it come from? Why her? Why not me? Why is it? And we get so caught up in the noise, almost as though because we want a perfect hole, we'd rather have no hole dug than an imperfect hole. And I think a frustration which came out of this was to say, can we just do something?
The whole.
Something. There's an old adage which is counterintuitive. It says, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing badly. Yeah. We were taught that if something is worth doing, it's worth doing well. No. This says, if something is worth doing, then do half. If it's a good cause, do a quarter, do a fifth, do something towards that thing that you say is good. But to wait until you perfect it while you do nothing. And I think we South Africans, through this national dialogue, just found ourselves revisiting something we already knew, and the frustrations that came out were actually saying, when are we going to do something? And well, I think that the political parties themselves would have heard it, but I think they should hear that more than anything, that people just want something done.
Yeah, anything.
Something.
When the president said we should ask ourselves why the gap between the rich and the poor is so big, what were your thoughts? And can we talk about that? Can we ask ourselves, and you give us some insights from your point of view, especially since you're in the economic space?
Yeah, it's again, we know why. Because it was engineered. It's not just apartheid. Apartheid came as the tail end of something that says, in an economy, we as human beings actually don't have a problem with seeing other people suffer. When I say we, it's not a uniquely South African thing. You can go to any country in the world, and there will be those who have far more than they need, and there'll be those with far less than they need, and they coexist. It's just that South Africa is so many. It's just so many. So the idea, there's no natural limit to wealth accretion. Somebody, in terms of your physical attributes, you can only be so tall. You can only be so wide. But when it comes to wealth, whether it's 1 million, 1 billion, 1 trillion, there's no point at which the system says it's enough for you. There is no point.
Is that not the problem, though?
It's only part. It's only part. What you must be mindful of is a redistribution of poverty. If you are saying, let's take the cake and redivide it, it believes that the cake is of a finite size.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's not. The economy continues to grow. By any measure, it continues to grow.
It's a virus. It just multiplies, right?
It's
by nature.
It's our economic activity.
Yeah.
That whatever you do, the moment you trade, you give an idea, there's an exchange of money. That is what the economy is. It's natural. You would have felt it during lockdown.
Yes.
That's when the GDP went to the floor for one simple reason. Good, we must all sit at home. Whatever that thing you were doing, maybe you're a banker, maybe you do nails, maybe you cut hair, maybe you're a gardener. That thing that you were doing that somebody was willing to pay you for, you were told, don't do it. And so that by sitting at home, that's all it is, by sitting at home, there was then a fall in economic activity. That's when it shrunk. If you want to redistribute there, then you're in trouble. There's not enough money to pay people to do nothing. That's the danger of thinking of it as a finite pie. If you think of it that everybody's little something does something, then you can say, let's talk about redistribution. Now you can be progressive and say, perhaps through a taxation that says, if you are wealthy, the wealthier you are, the more tax you will pay proportionately.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Not one that says you have enough, we're taking something away from you. That creates a disincentive, which in all of our lives we'd say, aye. If you're told that you will work from Monday to Thursday, but everything you make on Friday, you have to pay over.
There's a limit.
What will we all do on Friday?
We won't work.
We won't work, whether you're rich or you're poor. So whether you're rich or poor, you're a person, and that incentives drive you.
Yes.
So how can the haves and the have-nots come to one another?
Yes.
What was perhaps disappointing is that you would think that there's a point, an inflection point, that says, at what point do I begin to fear that the have-nots will eat what I have? What I'm saying is that is there a point of inequality where people will say, I eat the rich? And there is such a point. The one thing that the South African economy has done incredibly well is to manage inflation. If you go around the world and you look at the Arab Spring, when did those economies fall apart? When did it erupt? South America. It's when inflation gets to a point where you are now making the poor people even poorer. That's when people doi. So one of the very big ticks that you have to give this administration for the past 30 years is that inflation is managed. That when you buy a loaf of bread today and you buy a loaf of bread tomorrow, day on day, it's still just about within your reach. It's when a loaf of bread doubles and doubles and doubles again. Then people say, I could afford a loaf of bread on my income. I can no longer afford a loaf of bread. And I think that's been one of the saving graces within the South African economy. That through all other interventions, but that is possibly the single biggest one that has kept us away from some sort of civil revolt, some sort of civil unrest. But we have to use that platform to then go and do other things. It's not quite enough. You can't keep inflation low, pay social grants, and think it's enough. No, you have to have dignified work. You have to have real work. You have to have work that gives people the kind of income that they feel that they're going to have a better tomorrow. So yes, a long way to go, but I don't think, we are not at a point of despair. We're not at a point where...
At a boiling point.
At a boiling point, no. But we know the things that are holding us there. We know what's holding us there.
But then if it's like that, then it means then it protects the current status quo, and then it means that the same people who own the economy are going to stay owning the economy. Isn't that problematic?
It is what it is. Let's then go back to those countries where it fell apart. Argentina, they have a saying about the Argentinian economy that Argentina never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. If you think we've made policy blunders, look at Argentina. And I like watching Argentina because a lot of the mistakes we make, they have made. And the one that we haven't made is the one of hyperinflation. When you get to hyperinflation and the have-nots eat from the have, you don't get a redistribution of wealth. You get a redistribution of poverty, such that economic activity fails. If I know that my wealth will be halved tomorrow through inflation and halved again, what incentive do I have to work? So that when I have something, if I'm wealthy, I will do everything within my power to take my wealth from here and put it somewhere else. I'm not going to reinvest in a factory. I will take what I have and I will buy something that can leave these borders, be it gold, be it whatever other financial instrument, and I will leave. So you actually get an exportation of wealth. And so the idea that we may be better off if the whole system breaks, I know it feels like we're on the floor, but it gets a lot uglier than what we have in South Africa.
Why? What would happen?
Those who are involved in the factors of production, let's just take something as basic as agriculture. If you are growing wheat, before the season begins, as a farmer, you have to commit millions of rands into this year's harvest. If there is hyperinflation, your concern is you're going to spend more money today, or the money that you're spending today to sow will not come back to you, because by the time you harvest, the erosion of your wealth will be such that you're going to get back less than you put in. But you already have this money, so what do? Nothing. You just simply do nothing. And what of your farm workers? What do they now have? Once you stop the factors of production, even though they are unequal in their outcomes, and I'm using farming because it's easily relatable, that the farm owner, the owner of the land, takes an enormous amount out relative to the people who work on the farm. It's disproportionate, it's unequal. But they still get something. Please, I'm not saying that they should be grateful for what they get. I'm saying, could it even be worse? And the answer is yes, if the farmers don't plant.
But what if we become the farmers? Isn't that the argument? That we've been dispossessed of the money-making units?
Now, again, we have examples of where that has been tried. Just north of our border. Not far. Not far. And again, the idea starts like, it's a lovely idea to say, here are the farm workers, and you know what? Yes, they may not have all the specialized knowledge, but they've been working here for generations maybe, and we think that they could go and do it. And the book Animal Farm tells you how that movie is going to work out. Remember, wealth and poverty are engineered. You are asking a person who is going to step into the shoes and into the house of the farm owner not to behave like that one. Animal Farm says you're asking too much of human behavior. There's an Afrikaans expression. It says, waar 'n man staan is waar hy sit. Where you stand on an issue is where you sit. When you're a farm worker, I think I can hear what your position is. When you're a farm owner, I think I can hear what you're going to say. But only because you sit there. The moment you take me as a farm worker and you give me the keys to the tractor and you give me the keys to the house, am I suddenly going to share with the other farm workers? Human nature says greed will take over. And the very thing, the very system that created that. So if you're relying solely on human behavior, then we're putting too much hope in one another as human beings. Sorry.
Yeah.
So that if you want a redistribution, I then go back, only because taxation has been shown to work. It's not perfect. But it then says, look, if you can't trust MAZWAI to share nicely, then maybe we will tax them in a way that says, with this, we will then take and we will find a way to close that gap by giving these people that thing that they need, be it their own land, a share of their own land, their own equipment, the ability to farm their own little farms. That one person shouldn't own 100 and these ones own nothing. Maybe this one should own a little less and these ones a bit more. Whether that's 50-50, 80-20, is to move away from the absolutes. But
Is that how you see this expropriation, how it could work?
Oh gosh, expropriation without compensation. I guess I can say this on your platform. You know, you know, we say to kids, don't play with matches, ne? Don't play with matches. Expropriation without compensation is a right that exists. It's a norm in most modern economies. There's a point at which a government will say, we think there is some public infrastructure that should run through this land, be it a water pipe, a railway, or telephony. And you go to the landowner and you say to the landowner, for the greater good, please sacrifice your private rights for compensation. And the private landowner says, no, thank you. And the government says, we'll give you more. And the person says, no. The government says, look, this is our last offer, ne? Take this or we will expropriate this land and give you nothing, because the national agenda is more important than your personal agenda. That's the norm. If that didn't exist, you wouldn't have highways. Because I don't want a road through my backyard.
Yes.
I really don't. But because I know that the government has the right to take away my backyard and give me nothing, when I'm then given an offer, it'll sober me. We decided to play with that match and make it a political thing, as though the right to expropriate without compensation never existed, as though somehow this right you would take from the farmer and give to people that don't have land. That wasn't the cause. But the way in which it was politicized gave people this unrealistic idea that that's what expropriation was. So now you've got those with land who now live in fear because they're saying, but didn't this right exist already? So why are you doubling up? Kushuguti, you're planning to do something.
Yes.
And again, we know what a farmer does when you don't secure their next harvest, they're going to hold back. Then you've got these people who are like, yeah, we've been waiting for our farms. Give us our farms. This is not going to happen. And this is not going to happen. And now we have a dialogue about expropriation without compensation where none of what was made to be believed was going to be their reality. So the less that could have been said about it, perhaps the better. Government had that right. The land that government has earmarked, for the most part, is owned by government. It's government that generally sits on land that is unused. Rich people, you must accept, love money.
Yeah.
Let's just stay with that. Why would I spend millions to buy land and then do nothing with it as a rich person? I'm likely to do something because I want those millions to become more millions. So to go to private landowners who are doing nothing with their land, that's not the typical experience. It's government who happens to own large tracts of land. But does government need a mechanism? So national government can't just go to municipal and take the land. It needs a process. And expropriation is one of those processes. There are others. But it could have been done quietly. We just happen to do it in such a noisy fashion that each of us now has an idea of what expropriation without compensation means. And for the most part, we we are not thinking about it the way in which it's actually going to be rolled out.
Yeah, it's true, because how?
How?
And who gets what where?
You know, when my kids were small, 2 of them, I just decided to have some fun with them. Now you're busy doing your wills and all those sorts of things. And then I said to the older one day I shall become an ancestor. Don't cry. But when I'm gone, would you like to have this house? To which he says, yes. Then I asked the sibling, would you like to have this house? Yes, he says. I say to them, do you want to share? No. In my own house, did I have a way of taking my property and dividing it in a way that the recipients would both be happy?
Yo, that's bad.
Human nature. Human nature. So the idea that you can just take and give, you only need to test, this is where we began our conversation. If you want to test a national policy, just test it at home. Look at your own siblings, look at your family home and say, do you want to live in your family home with your siblings as adults? No, you don't want that. So if it won't work ekhaya, why do we believe that it should work
on a macro level?
On a macro level. It won't.
Are you saying that each man to himself?
No. I'm saying that we have to find a way that says we must distribute it in a way that incentivizes people. I'm just staying with farming. As a farm worker, I work for minimum wage. How much effort do I put? How much of myself do I put in that? Well, if you're paying me minimum, I'm giving you minimum. Go to the owner of the land. He has a lot. And what does he do? He gives a lot. So this one is incentivized to give a lot and gets a lot. This one is only incentivized to give a little because they receive a little. And this is why I'm saying that the productivity of the farm will improve if we can balance the economics around it. If you can balance and create an incentive, and we have them. This is perhaps the frustration again, that we have the policies. Let's talk about BEE.
Yeah.
These things are not new ideas. We must be both foolish and arrogant if we think we can sit on this platform and come with new ideas. No. Our problems are known to us. The idea of BEE is then to say, well, those people who were systematically excluded from ownership should now be systematically included.
Yes, correct.
The reality is that where there were rich white people, we now have rich black people.
Yeah.
And you then say, have we done something? We've done something. Have we done all that we wished we should have done? And you say, actually, no.
But the problem is that where there's the black, rich, white, that thing you just said, it's a very small minority. It's less than 10 people or something. And we're speaking for a population of 60 million. So 10 black people being rich is not going to make a difference to the 55, 58 million.
And such is the inequality in the South African economy. You don't have millions and millions of rich people.
Mm-mm.
The concentration is high.
Yes.
When you look at what the wealthiest person owns versus everybody else,
Yes.
It's staggering. So that if you keep everything the same and just say, I want to solve for this, all you've solved for is we will now have some rich black people, which I'm saying is we've achieved something. But we have to look at each other and say, is that all we meant to achieve? And the answer is no. The rich were fine. We have to look at the mass of people who've been excluded from opportunity and say, This very policy of BEE doesn't need to be redrafted or redrawn. It just needs to be administered and policed in a way that actually achieves the things we want it to achieve. And again, I speak to that frustration. We shouldn't be looking to rewrite. We've had 30 years of fine-tuning. It's now to say, how do we actually use the things that are in the codes to get the outcomes that we want?
Because our results now with BEE is just that it's created a small black elite. So how do we make BEE affect the masses?
All the things are there in the codes. Take supplier development as an example. We don't speak about it because we often speak about equity. Supplier development says, I am a big corporate. No, let's stay with farming. It's just nicer just to follow the same thing. I say I am a commercial farmer. I know that I have certain inputs. I buy my feed from whoever I buy it from. Supply development says, I know that there are some small operators. For one moment, leave whether they're black or white. They are small. Why are they small? Because they just don't have the ability to produce for me in the size I want. I want to buy a ton of whatever my input is, fertilizer. But they can only produce 100 kilograms. So what do? I ignore them and I go to the big producer. And I stay buying from the big producer. And the big producer becomes bigger. And the small producers can never grow. The codes say, go to the small one and say, I am going to contract with you to make you bigger. You would think there'd be a natural incentive. Because if I'm buying from one big guy, that big guy has got pricing power over me.
Yes.
Whereas if I grow these smaller ones, it will naturally balance out. Now I've got 3 or 4 people that I can procure from rather than one. These things are in the codes. Supply development, they are there. We're just not doing it.
Why is that messaging not there? Because we don't know. We're not economists. We don't understand how everything works. Why is it not like how we know that red, amber, and green mean this at the traffic?
I'll make you chuckle. It's amazing how something can be misinterpreted and then becomes real. The idea of broad-based empowerment. In the first drafts of empowerment, it was about ownership, value. We looked at apartheid, ownership, we must redress ownership. And it really was just about ownership. And some clever people said, it's not just about ownership. We've got skills transfer, we've got supply development, we've got all of these other things. Those things were called broad-based economic empowerment. But somewhere, broad-based meant, no, these shares can't just belong to this one black person. They must belong to many black people. And we call that broad-based empowerment. So that when you look at empowerment deals, they are then done that there'll be a principal, MAZWAI, and there'll be some women, and there'll be some youth, and there'll be some disabled. And then MAZWAI says, it's a broad-based scheme. And the youth are saying, thanks for the shares, but kahle kahle, we just want an opportunity to be trained. The women are saying, thank you, but we want the opportunity to supply to you. But because broad-based just meant many people owning shares, that's not what broad-based empowerment was. Broad-based means look at the entire scorecard, of which equity is only one thing. There are other things that must be done. That is what broad-based means. But broad-based just now simply means many people owning shares. And for a lot of those people, the shares are not what...
No way.
It's not what they need.
Oh, I thought it's not what it was hyped out to be.
No, I am a manufacturer of uniform. I want to supply that big mining company. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But their order sizes means I have to produce thousands of uniforms. I don't have the machinery to produce thousands. Broad-based empowerment says, enable me to produce.
Yes.
Enable may simply say, here is an order for 10,000 uniforms. I can then take that order to my bank and say, this company says they will pay me. Can you lend me money to buy a machine? I will produce and I will pay back my loan and I will supply.
This conversation speaks to how a lot of people right now are talking about how South Africa is becoming de-industrialized. And that is perhaps one of our problems economically, that we have got no factories and therefore no jobs. And
Relatively, other people are just more efficient. You look at China, and that's true of South Africa as many other parts of the world, that the Chinese were very serious about industrializing in the same way the Japanese were very serious about industrializing. You had public, you had private, you had policies, you had action. It's not an accident that China ended up where it was. So that when you then have your factory here in South Africa and somebody's producing the same thing in China at a fraction of the cost, that's where now your difficulty is. Not that we can't do it, but we just didn't make those investments. The nature of economy, and I'm going back to small economics.
yeah,
I can't be an economy on my own.
yeah,
I can't cut my own hair
yeah,
and make my own jeans
yes,
and grow my own food.
yes.
So that
And
if
ecosystem.
somebody is better than me at cutting hair, let them cut my hair and let me make jeans.
Yeah.
Find that thing that you actually are relatively better off than. Because a person, it's perhaps one of the most difficult things that I had in understanding in formal economics. You can cut hair and you can make clothes. I can cut hair and I can make clothes. We're both skilled in both. But you may be better at making clothes than cutting hair. It says you should do no hair cutting. Because every time you cut somebody's hair, you could have been making clothes and you would have been better off.
Yeah.
On the other hand, let me do the hair cutting. Once you are doing that thing that you are brilliant at, now you've left a gap for me to cut hair. Even if I'm not as good as you at cutting hair, don't make the mistake of competing with me for cutting hair. You should be making clothes. And that's what makes the economy work. If China's making jeans, let China make jeans. If South Africa is good at growing wheat, let us grow wheat. But there's not a point at which we'll say, relatively, we are bad against everybody at what we do. No. So rather than lamenting the one thing that we may have lost out on, let's look at what we can do. And let's then focus our energies in terms of doing that thing. And then relatively, when China has a factory that makes jeans, we can have a factory or a mine or a whatever that can then trade with them.
So, one of your claims to fame is that you made Stokvels, you put Stokvels into the mainstream and into the banking system in the country. So can we unpack the importance of Stokvels, the history of Stokvels, obviously, because you've already, so your thesis, the work you've done.
No, thank you for that. The most important work that Stokvels do is to save. We started our conversation with saving. And I'll always argue, and I know I'm unpopular. It's the right place to be unpopular, ne? I'm unpopular when I say save, because people say, we earn too little, we can't save. What do Stokvels do? They save. Even if, and this is in defense of Stokvels, the most basic Stokvel is a rotational one. That says, to make it simple, there are 12 of us, And every month, one person gets paid out. So we all put in 1,000 Rand. In January, it's me, and then we go around. So that at the end of the year, you're going to receive 12,000 Rand. A cynic will say, yeah, but you put in 12,000 and you're getting out 12,000. So how are you better off? And the answer is, the Stokvel gave you the discipline of saving. Do you really believe that on your own you would have had that discipline?
No.
It's a simple test. Where are we now? What month?
We're in August now, end of August.
Just answer in your own mind. I don't want to embarrass you. Do you even remember your New Year's resolutions and how are they going? Konja, what did I say I'd do? If you said I'm going to save 1,000 Rand a month, I'm going to say to you, where's your 8,000 now? Eish. But if you belong to a Stokvel, you would say, hi, my 8,000 is getting paid to me at the end of August. And then you say, wow, now you're going to have 8,000 and you can do that thing for 8,000. You can now acquire, I'm going to use a big term as a factor of production. Again, I'm saying you are making clothes. You always wanted that machine to make clothes. You went to the bank wouldn't give you money because you don't tick all of their boxes.
Yes.
And on your own, you just know that 8,000 will never come to you all at once.
Yes.
But through a Stokvel, they can say to you, here is your 8,000. So that if all you've done is to get back the money you put in, you are already better off. I'm not talking about the Stokvels that invest. That's like, whoa. I'm talking about the power of saving. So yes, Stokvels do save.
What are the different kinds of Stokvels? Because, our generation, Stokvels were like our parents' generation. But I feel as if this information has to be passed down so that we can start these practices.
I'm always amazed by the number of people who actually belong to Stokvels and don't recognize that they are. The definition of a Stokvel is really what grounds it. It is a group of people who put their money together for a common cause. And it's perhaps the most simple ones are the social ones. We all understand them. You're a group of girls and you want to have a nice time. You say, hey, girls, we have to go to Sun City. I mean, I've never been to Sun City. This year, we're going to Sun City. One of you will do the work and you'll say, there's a package. And if we just save 250 a month, we can go to Sun City. Okay. When you're not a Stokvel, you say to each one, 1, you'll all save your money. Ne? Now it's time to go December. And what's going to happen? There were 6 of you, maybe 3 of you have saved, the other 3 haven't. A Stokvel says, no. Let us all take our 250 and put it in one place, such that at the end of that year, we know that the money for the Sun City trip is there. So many Stokvels start out like that. That is just social. We enjoy one another's company. We want to hang out and we want to have a good time. And we're going to use this instance for the discipline of saving. We'll do it in year 1. We'll do it in year 2. By year 3, there are more people that have joined. Then something happens spontaneously. You've now chowed December. It was nice. Now it's January. And you all look at each other and think, did we have to chow all of that money got December? And the discipline, and we've seen it, is really in that 3rd year of maturity that Stokvels say, ladies, often it's ladies, will say, we put 250 aside and it was nice. Maybe we can make it 300. And that last 50, we're not going to chow it. It'll be waiting for us in January when we really need it. And so that you take a Stokvel that has saved for consumption, that now saves for investment. And once you cross over, then you start doing other things. Then you can say, hey, ladies, I've got an idea. We can invest in, let's buy an apartment and rent it out. But once you've created people who want to save together and believe that in saving together they can achieve outcomes that they couldn't achieve on their own, that is the power of Stokvels. So yeah.
Geez, so the power is saving.
The power is saving.
It's all in the saving.
It's all in the saving.
Wealth is all in the saving.
In the saving.
We often have this conversation about land and how black people relate with land and how white people relate with land, and how that's where the issue of contention is in South Africa. So do you want to break that down for us?
What's the correct term? A past president is still referred to as president, ne?
Yes.
It was President Mbeki who really articulated it well. Are you talking about land or are you talking about property? And that's the nuance. Again, for a moment, pause as to whether it's black or white. If it's my primary residence, it's not property, it's land. I've got an emotional connection. I live here. This is where I raise my children. The moment I buy a second property or a second dwelling, now that's property. Now I'm looking at the economics. I'm doing it for a return. I could buy my house. I'm staying with the same example. I could buy my first house for 450,000 Rand. And after 10 years, I'm told that it's doubled and it's now 900,000 Rand. Am I richer? Let's unpack it. If my house has doubled, then it probably my neighbor's house has doubled too, ne? So if I sold my house for 900,000, I would need another 900,000 to buy the same house. You see where I'm going with this? When your land doubles in value, you actually aren't richer because you never mean to sell it. Where will you live? And so now that you're going to put race on it, for many of us as black people, because we don't own any land, we're talking about that first one that says, I want a place I can call my own. And that's land. With wealthy people who tend to be white, disproportionately, you speak about property. I may have 6, 7, or 8 properties. A portfolio. The collective noun. A portfolio of properties. I don't own 7 flats in Sandton because I want to sleep in 7 different bedrooms or beds. I own them so that I can get rent.
Yeah.
And that's the nuance between land and property.
So we don't have property though.
If you don't have land, you don't have property. First solve for land. And there's some things that we also haven't fixed. We come from, I think it's still Transkei, ne? I think because the Kai River is still there and we're still on that side.
We come from
so
Transkei,
we are Transkei. That we never own land.
Yes.
There's no title deed.
God's land.
We'll say, kwa MOYA, kwa MAZWAI, that we don't have title. Now, stay with me in this example. Once I have land, once I have my own house and my own title deed, I'm going back to the example to say, my house went from 450,000 to 900,000. I know I can't sell it because I'll have nowhere to live. However, I can go to a bank and say, I have this thing of this value. I know I want to buy something which is going to make me money. I may want to buy an apartment somewhere. I say, can I use this as collateral to go and buy that? So that's where you can now use your land to acquire property. A difficulty that we have is that if you live on cultural land and the chief has given you, the king, Inkosi, has given you the right to live there, Now you could be doing very well. You've got your homestead, you've got your cattle, you've got something of substance. Now you want to buy a property. Now you go to a bank and say, look at what I have. I want to buy more. And the bank says, please give us the title deed. Eish. You're going to go to Nkosi and say, Nkosi, I want the title deed. So there are other inhibitors to wealth formation that we must look at amongst ourselves. I'm not saying I have the answer, but we know what the issue is. We know where the problems are. We know where those frustrations can be. How do you convert that land that we own into an instrument that can allow us to go and buy more properties? So yeah.
Because even the language, I mean, Abelungu speak of owning land and on pieces of paper. Our culture doesn't speak to land ownership.
No.
We are of this earth, it's our home. So, how do you think that we're going to have a conversation between different nations, because there's so many different nations in this South Africa, to have the same understanding of what land is and how land is rented for however many years? Because I mean, even in the Bible, apparently it says that you can't own the land. You just get rented it for 99 years or whatever, and then for generations.
One of the more sophisticated economies in the world is the United Kingdom. And property values are incredible. You don't own land in the UK.
Oh.
The Queen, well, now the King owns land. You have a 99-year lease. That you come from wherever you come from. In England, they came from a monarchy, where the monarchy, the king is the state. Hence why their national anthem changes. God save our gracious king. King and sovereign are one. Then they're inseparable.
Yes.
And they wished to preserve that. They wished to preserve their culture that says the king owns all the land. But they also understood that people need to have a piece of paper that says, I have an uninterrupted right to this land.
Yes.
And they managed to weave their old cultural system with a new financial system. We here have an old cultural system that says ownership is not for individuals, it's communal. But we do know that if you have a title deed, it allows you to create wealth. Again, on this platform, we're not here to create new ideas. They exist. The answers exist. We must now inquire in places like the UK to say, how did you guys get it right? How does it happen? So I have a 99-year lease. What happens a year in 98? Is the king going to take my house? No, don't worry. He's not the kind of king. Say, oh, he'll renew. Always, yes. And if you can build trust, then having that perpetual lease is the equivalent of ownership. And then you can marry those two things. So no, we're not the only ones with these problems. Other people have gotten ways.
Because it must be an abu,
Yeah, they say, what kind of king are you? Maybe you're not the kind of king we can trust.
Hey, South Africa.
Yeah, no, these issues are real.
And I'm just trying to think of anything. So are you saying, well, our economy, and now we're just wrapping up, is our economy going to be okay? Are we going to be okay? How should we be moving?
The short answer is we're fine. We will be fine. If you've ever raised a child, you can't stop a child growing. You can't stop a child learning. You can raise them poorly, and they can turn out to be brattish, they can turn out to be entitled and to be spoiled or to be rude, but grow they will. And an economy is a lot like that. You can't stop it growing. It's natural that it will grow. Yes. We are saying, how do you grow it to be a good economy? an inclusive economy. So the idea that it can just collapse into nothing, we shouldn't live with that fear.
Okay.
We should live with the fear that we end up with, just a bad kid who was raised poorly. Bad in the context of inequality that we just live with.
How can we grow the economy?
No, the economy grows itself. It's like saying, how do you grow a child?
Oh.
Children grow themselves. The economy is you and me. Every day you want to eat, you need to eat. Somebody will make sure that they cook. Somebody will make sure that they grow. Somebody will make sure that that's what an economy is. Once you put people together, as they service one another, as they trade with one another, that is the economy. The economy is not this thing that is put on top of us. No. The economy is just how we...
It's our activity.
It's our
day,
activity.
How our money goes every day.
It's our money. So whether usekasi and you're just doing smaller nyana trading on the street, or you're on the JSE doing a billion, the idea that one person says, I will give you this for that, that's an economic activity. So economies grow because populations grow, people have aspirations. The mindset that we should have, and I really am using the one of kids deliberately, being a good parent says you just guide. You know right from wrong, and you want to teach your kid right from wrong. It's not like you need a special book. Kids don't come with a manual. They don't need it. They're going to grow anyway. And what we have to do when we look at our policies is to say, is this policy going to create desirable outcomes? The same way that when you educate your child or when you rear your child, you say, is this desirable? If I incentivize my child to do this, are they going to be well-mannered and respectful, or are they just going to be bratish?
Who do we trust with our policies? And I ask this as someone just a random on the ground. Who do we trust with our policies, and what are our policies? Have we put our policies in safe hands that look out for all of us? What's the situation like in our country?
The policies that we have, well, now that we have a coalition government, if you go and look at the manifestos of those political parties, those are our policies. You can close your eyes and rattle them off. We must improve education, yeah. We must reduce inequality, yeah. We have the policies. The policies are there.
Like earlier this year, sorry to jump back again, there was the whole issue with the budget and not it being signed, and then all the money was held back, and then those of us who do get money from government really felt it,
Yeah.
you know? So what is that, and how should we understand? How, paint a picture for us so that we know what's going on. To be like, okay, this is what happened.
Bring it into your home. If you live alone, you're a household of one, you make all the decisions.
Yeah.
The moment you are two, you must talk to each other. If you're two and you have kids, now you want to do what on Friday? Suddenly, if you want to go out on Friday, the person that you are living with and rearing kids with will say, no. We can't allocate this. We have to say so much for school fees, so much for food, so much for going out, so much for clothing. That happens at a national level.
Mm-hmm.
A personal point, for me, the real disappointment in that whole debacle, let me go back one step.
Mm-hmm.
When there was one party that drove the budget, this is now, again, if you use your homestead, you're going to say the one partner in the relationship.
Yes.
They make the money, they make the decisions.
Yes.
To draw an analogy.
Yes.
Now suddenly the other partner says, I'm here too. I also make money. Maybe not as much as you,
Yes.
but I'm contributing. And if I'm contributing, I want to say.
Yes.
And so in a coalition government, the coalition partners wanted a say. And one of the says was, what about VAT? These guys said we should increase VAT. And the other guy said no. And for the first time, we had a standoff because we had a coalition government for the first time in 30 years. So that again, if you look at in your own household,
Yes.
how do you resolve that dispute? How do you resolve that dispute? So that's what caused the loggerhead. My own disappointment in it was not once was the term fruitless and wasteful expenditure used. In the entire budget speech, the minister was saying, we have so much money coming in, we have all of these things, teachers, nurses, all the things that government spends its money on. And we don't have enough money, therefore we must raise more, therefore raise taxes. I think it would have been a good nod just to acknowledge that there is fruitless and wasteful expenditure and that something should be done about it. I think to create some form of connection with people in society. To say, ha, Kantinina, when you finish your money, you just raise taxes. Because in your household, you don't do your budget and say, hey, I don't have enough. Employer, pay me more. Which is the luxury that government has to raise taxes, which is just to simply say, bring more in.
After they finished our money on slave queens.
I can't comment on that, on whatever the budgetary allocations were. But I think in a maturing democracy, yes, it wasn't good to see that as a stumbling block, but the big silver linings that we South Africans should take away is that we had a ruling party that accepted that it lost a general election. It accepted the result. Many of our neighbors,
yes, have not.
When they lose an election, they contest the result. So as much as for all of the noise that there is around our politics,
Yes.
let us South Africans accept that it is quite a maturing. When a person who has ruled, and I use the word deliberately, has ruled for 30 years, looks at the outcome and says, I accept. The late Mugabe said without a word of jest of his neighbor who lost an election, I held you in higher regard than that, than to lose an election that you were conducting yourself.
Rigging, man.
You announce the date, you print the ballot, you count the ballot, and you still lose. That's when you can say maybe my political landscape is problematic. Noisy, yes. Problematic, no. The fact that we have a coalition government, the fact that our political parties are willing to accept the voice of the people is a maturing. So is there hope, to your question as we look forward? Is there hope? And I'm thinking, there are certain things that are working. We often focus on the ones that are not, but there are things that are working. Do we have an economy that functions? Yes. Do we have price stability? Yes. Do we have elections that are free and fair? Yes. Do people accept the outcome of those elections? Yeah. Do we have enough to have a genuine hope in our future? Yes. I'm only saying this as a point of bragging. This is I told you so. Eskom will be fixed because it has to be. Transnet will be fixed because it has to be. So as much as we South Africans are frustrated, are we moving in the right direction? Yes. Could it be faster? Please. Should it be faster? Absolutely. But no, the idea that we are in a hopeless case, no, we are not in a hopeless case. Frustrated, yes, but hopeless, no.
My last question is, how do we get corporate South Africa? Because a lot of the CSI investments, they're crooked things happening in there. So how do we actually make sure that corporate directly builds infrastructures like in townships, is actually, so there's no middlemen, or how would we be able to do that? So that the things get done, you know?
I chuckled at most. I don't know whether that's most or it's a lived experience. South Africa does have many functional NGOs, functional, I mean, the gift of the givers. Whatever I'm saying to the viewers, whatever
Yes.
your view may be on that particular one, and I'm not making it political, the ability to raise money from corporates and to deploy. Yes, Mafrika Tukun raises billions and deploys. So is there a functional NGO system? Yeah, there is. Who's making the decisions? Where's the money being raised from? Where is it being used? Those are perhaps the nuances that say, maybe can it be better? Yeah, maybe it can be better. But it's fair to say that I'm just using an example. Fees Must Fall was a long time ago, but it did show the extent to which CSI money was going towards education. We said fees must fall, and fees fell. And the former president, then President Zuma, announced that tertiary education, if you meet certain criteria, will be free. It had a perverse effect of many corporates who were giving money to education saying, oh, now that it's free, there's nothing to give towards, because the money was being given to the individual to go to university, not to go to university. So you had a bizarre situation where the universities lost money.
Snap.
And a lot of the frustrations around fees must fall had to do with a disrupting of how the money was flowing.
You see, the corporates need to give directly to the university.
We should all sit in a room and think through these things slowly. This thing of making a pronouncement without thinking through what will this foundation do? Yeah, it did. Did it work itself out? Yes, it worked out. But I'm saying that there were a few years of disruption. And this is what I mean by things work. We must just get them working better. We're not a failed state.
Are you saying that we've just got a poor leadership system?
You said it. No, I think it's the political will. It's the political will to say, I really want things to be that much better off. That's where that inertia is.
And are our politicians worthy, and are they what we need? Like when we look at MK, ANC, EFF, DA, BOSA, RAS, are they what we need?
The system is what creates the parties. The system is what creates the people. And again, I'm going to hang my hat on the idea that we're able to form a coalition. It's incredible. Given how divergent they are, the ability to come together and try and run the country in the right direction. The outcomes could have been...
Is it really a coalition if it's got nobody on the left? If everybody on the right sticks together, then is it really...
No, they're in the habit of calling it a government of national unity. I call it a coalition.
Yes, of the right.
Whichever. A government of national unity says that everybody is inside.
Yes.
A coalition says some are inside and some are in opposition. I'm saying that for this conversation, those are semantics. It's the idea that they're willing to cooperate. For an ANC and a DA to cooperate, if you go back to an election or two ago, you'd have thought to yourself, the way that they're speaking at each other, you wouldn't have seen it come through. And I think that as South Africans, it's commendable that they were able to say, for the sake of the nation, let's put our differences aside to the extent possible and let's go in the right direction. That for me is what makes me bullish.
So you think we're on the right track?
Yes, slowly, too slowly. Just too slowly.
What about it being on the right track for if you are privileged and you are? Is it really on the right track for somebody who doesn't have access to resources? Someone like us who's unemployed, lives in a home where it's to those small houses and there's like 11 of them, grandchildren, uncles. is it also going in the right direction for them?
The policies to redress that are there. It's just that we're not doing it. We know what we have to do with schooling. We know what we have to do. We don't have to go to Parliament and write new laws. We just have to say, the things we said we would do, we will do. That when kids go to school, the teachers are there and they teach. That's not a policy issue. That's an implementation issue. And that's where my frustration comes, that when we know what the right thing is to do, we just seem to let ourselves down and don't do the thing that we need to do. But no, we don't need a new education system. We don't need new textbooks. We don't need a new curricula. Whether it's perfect or not, it's good enough. It's let's go and do it. Let's put teachers in classrooms. Let's put kids in there. Let's make sure they're fed and let them learn.
Mr. MAZWAI, thank you so much for coming through to MOYA Political Series. We've learned a lot. I'm sure this is not the last time you're coming. There's a lot we've still got to unpack. Just saying thank you. And Umoya Ulight, Umoya Upright, thank you guys for joining us on MOYA Political Series. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you especially to the members for helping us pay the bills. We really appreciate you. See you again next time.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into it off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.